Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar from the NEP. Today we're getting back to basics a little bit, and I've got Nick and Alice on the line from Microsoft who are going to take us through one of the things that is just so basic but breathtaking with M365 and Teams. The idea of being able to co-author documents and stop sending attachments. And when you stop sending attachments, you save hours and hours of time, and it means you're always going to get the latest document. So we are recording the webinar as normal. They will be popping up onto the NEP website shortly afterwards. And I would remind you, colleagues, that you can download these videos and embed them on your own local SharePoint and intranet sites to help colleagues move things forward. So if ever you need any help with using some of the content from the NEP, please get in touch with us and we'll help you to use this to help you roll out the 365 space. So whether you're new to SharePoint and 365 or you're been on there a while and thinking I'm not getting the best out of this, hopefully today you'll learn loads from it. The Q&A is open. Alice will be answering questions as we go, and we'll pick some of them up back at the end as well. So Nick, over to you. Let's get into co-authoring and sharing documents.
Excellent, thank you, David. Okay, you should be able to see my screen.
It's just coming on now.
Brilliant. So I'm going to show you a few things with regards to co-authoring today, but also I'm going to show you some hints and tips and hopefully some things that you've not seen before. So I'm in Teams here today, as you can see. I've just popped across to a particular channel that I've got some information in here for you today. And I'm just going to show you how to co-author a document. So first of all, I'm going to go into the Chief's event comms here, this little Word document. And when I open the document, you can see a few things straight away around other colleagues potentially working in this document. So I do have Alice online within this tenant with me today. So if Alice can open this document at the same time to co-author, then we can show you how to do it together. Okay, there we go. There's Alice. So first of all, you'll notice as you open a document in 365, when I first started, you see there was nobody else up here in the area here for co-authoring. You can see now Alice has got her profile here, so I know that she's joined into this document with me. She's opened the document at the same time. Now, if Alice and I are working on this document, there's a few hints and tips that you can that'll help you on your journey of co-authoring. So say, for example, if Alice can go into some of the section within this document, you'll see straight away Alice's profile, her 365 initials will pop up. You can see here that Alice is actually starting to type in this particular document. So you can see where people are co-authoring. The other thing you can do at the same time as somebody else is that you can add comments to documents. Now we've added a comment down here. Now when we add comments to documents, it might be just to keep our audience up to speed around certain changes that we want to make or maybe questioning. So the comment I've made here is, can we check if this is correct? Is it actually happening on Wednesday? So if I just click on this comment, what happens, it actually highlights this comment that we've added within that document. And the way that we did that is we click on comments, and we can just you can click on, so maybe, for example, say Germany and Ukraine. And then we can start then typing some information with regards to this. Oops, Germany and Ukraine, that's my fault. Okay. Oops, sticky mouse today. And click on new, and I can start making a comment about this particular. So can we, it's going very slow today, typical. Oh, can we check the locations? Thanks, something like this. Okay, so when we create a document and we co-author, we can add comment and we can post them. These remain within these documents, okay? These remain within this Word document, so we can always go back and have a look at that commentary. The other thing that we have within co-authoring is we can start a conversation. Now, as an example why we would actually start a conversation within a document, maybe perhaps I want to pull somebody else into this document. Me, myself and Alice are co-authoring, but maybe we want to actually call in somebody else within the team, within our tenant, to actually help us create this document. So as you can see here, I've made a comment to actually pull Nesta into this article. So I'm just going to do it at Nesta again, just to show you the experience of what Nesta receives. So this is somebody else within my demo tenant. Say, please help. There we go. Okay. And once I pop that into this chat, this is actually using Teams chat, Teams posts within the environment. Now, if I just pop over Nesta, who's in There you go. And then at the screen here, this is Nesta. Nesta's logged on. And what Nesta would have received is a little pop-up box in the bottom right-hand corner, a notification. And in that notification, it was said that Megan has invited you along to this article. If I look in activity, you can see here that Megan has mentioned Nesta, please help. You can see that. So that's a post within Teams, and that's bringing other people into that co-authoring. So that's what the conversation area here is. Also, if I just very quickly pop back into my my channel conversation here, if I go into posts, it does actually record, because it is a Teams chat message, a Teams post message, it does actually record it here within my post area of Teams. It's all about collaboration. It's all about letting the audience within my team know that we're doing something. So maybe somebody in the team isn't available, they're on holiday, they're on a different shift. They can see that Megan, Alice and Nesta have been working on the chief event comms. Keeps people up to speed. Now in the background here, I'm just going to ask Alice to make some changes quickly to that document, because there's another little feature within the co-authoring that is also very, very handy. So I'm just going to wait for Alice to give me a little nod to say that she's completed it. You see her typing away. Just get back to my files. Okay, we have the thumbs up. Now, say for example, I've been away from this document again, maybe on holiday, on a shift, it's the following day. It gives me a notification straight away that something has happened since I've been away. And if I click on this, it will actually tell me the edit note. That's what Alice changed since I last was in the article. So it's really clever to keep you updated, keep everybody within the team notified of how you're co-authoring within these documents. And this takes place within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, within that 365 environment. And the really nice thing about it is you don't have to think about saving these articles as you're changing them, because we're in 365, it auto saves. So that's a quick brief overview of co-authoring, some of the comments, some of the catch-up functionality, and some of those conversations.
It's fantastic, Nick. So how do you go on about sharing and managing access?
Very good question. Okay, so there's a couple of things that you can do within Teams itself, but most of the functionality around sharing and access is just a little bit easier if you do drop into SharePoint. So looking still at this article here, this Chiefs Event Comms article, if I wanted to, I could copy the link. Maybe if I want to copy it to maybe talk about it within a Teams chat, then copy link is great. But what I can do is actually drop into open in SharePoint. Now, by opening the document within SharePoint, it gives me all the functionality of our SharePoint product, and there's lots of functionality here. So looking at this document here, if I wanted to share it with somebody, there's a couple of things I can do. I can use this little symbol here. This is how I can share my article. If I click on share, it gives me some options here about who do I want to share this link with. Is it somebody within my organization? Maybe somebody's already got access, and maybe I just want to pick out a few specific people. And when I'm thinking about giving people access, there's a couple of options. I can allow them to edit, or I can remove editing, and I can also block a download. So maybe if this is an article that I want to share with somebody, I don't want them to edit, and I definitely don't want them to download it and make some changes or have that material themselves. So say, for example, with this one, I'm going to say specific people, and I'm not going to allow editing, and I will allow download, and I'm just going to pick somebody in the team. Okay, and actually outside of my Microsoft team. So I'm just going to choose Alex, and then I'm just going to click send. Now, Alex at this point will receive an Outlook message to say that Megan has provided access to the document, and Alex will be able to click on that document and open it. Now, one of the a lot of questions I get around sort of co-authoring, around sharing within SharePoint is, how do I know who's got access to that file? And actually, how do I revoke access? And the easiest way to do this is to go into SharePoint as we are today and click on the little three dots and go into Manage Access. Now on the right hand side, it just pulls up quite a bit of a menu and it gives you lots of information. Now this information here around these links, this is because I've shared this article several times. Now these links are created not per person or team that I share it with, they're created for the type of access that I've given somebody. So if I just click on those little three dots there, because this link is been created, therefore I've shared it with somebody. Let's have a look to see who I've shared it with. So it tells me here, I've shared this link with Nesta and Patty. They can edit, and they can review. Okay, say for example, I don't want Nesta and Patty to have this access anymore. It's really easy to revoke that access. Just come up here to the right hand side and just hover over that little cross box and you can see remove link. It removes the link, so anybody that has that link won't be able to use it. It's removed, it's deleted. So I'm just going to click on that one to show you. Yes, I'm definitely sure I don't want them to have access. It's not deleting the file, just that link for them to have access. And then going down here, you can see some other options, some other access rights I've given. I've given Alex. Alex can review, as in he can edit, but he can, if he wanted to, download. And there's some other options here. So these are the other ones that I've set up as part of this demonstration, just to give you some other examples here. So
the use cases for that in policing are huge, because particularly neighbourhood policing, they might want to share a document with the council over something, or he's doing something around safeguarding issues. You can prevent them from downloading a document but still have view rights. You can then revoke it after the meeting. All those things gives you the power, and the document actually never moves out of SharePoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find this one very useful because over time I forget who I've shared documents with. Another little sort of hint and tip that I've done before is sometimes if you've got a number of files that you're sharing with a team, a party of people, or just individuals, sometimes it's just easier to create a little folder for them. So for example, where I've used it is if I'm working with a finance team, maybe a year end, I create a little folder within my team here, within my channel called finance, and I would actually share the actual folder itself. And then I can sort of plonk in files as and when I wanted to. So rather than actually sharing a link to a specific file, share the link to a specific folder, and then you can control what's actually in that folder for them to see. That sometimes is a little bit easier than having multiple files to manage. Create folders instead.
So that's great for that bit, but how about when you want to just take control of the document? Can you check the document out to make sure?
Yes. That's a really good question, David. So think of checking in and checking out documents like a library book. So sometimes you may have a file that is not necessarily sensitive, but maybe you're working on it and you're away for a few days and you don't want anybody playing around with your file. So what you can do is check that file out. And the way that you do that, again, is use a little 3 dots, always very handy in 365, always means more options. You click on 3 dots, you go down to more, you can check the document out. So I'm just going to check this document out for you. You can see here that I've checked it out. On my screen, because it's checked out to me, it gives me this little red symbol. If I hover over it, it does say that it's checked out. So nobody else within my tenant can actually amend that. You can see this document here, the chief update. It's got a same sort of similar arrow. If I just get there, you can see the arrow there. That's indicating that it's checked out, but it's not checked out by me. If it's checked out by me, it's red. If it's checked out by anybody else, it's just clear. You can see here a little bit more detail. This item was created and it's been checked out by Alice. So Alice, in effect, has that library book. She's checked it out. Nobody else. You can read it, but you can't actually edit it. And if, for example, I'm back in the office, I've amended my document and now I want to share that with my colleagues, make it editable to them, I click on my 3 dots, click on more, and I check it back in. And it does give me a little bit of a commentary box of adding some text about what changes potentially I've made to that particular version. And then I check it back in again. And you can see the symbol just disappears, gives me a little bit of a notification. There is something else that's actually I find really useful around sort of file management in teams of people is when you can set up alerts. So again, in this little 3 dots here, I do have a little alert me. Now I've actually already set up alert on this file. So say, for example, you have a file or a group of files that are important to you and you want to know when people are amending them, when there's changes being made, you can set up that a little alert me. I'll just show you what the screen looks like. There's actually alert. There's a little bit of configuration. I normally just set it to default. And there's, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a little OK. So I've already set this one up. This is already in play. Now, if anybody amends this document, if I just pop over to Outlook, you can see here, actually, let me just go back there, shared document, that one there, I think it is. Yeah, there you go. There's an alert that I put in place this morning to say this document has been changed. And I can go there to modify my alerts if I wanted to, or I could click the link to go straight into that document. So it just gives me a little bit of information about that document, that it's been amended. And remember, at the beginning of this demonstration, we showed you when I exited a document and Alice went back in, and we saw that there was a catch-up button, and I can see any changes that have been made to that document. So it's really clear what you've missed when you've been away.
I've got a great question, Nick, here. Sorry,
No.
apologies, David. Got a quick question here on the topic of checking out. Who actually has the permission to check out a document?
As it stands, anybody that has permissions to this particular SharePoint location. So this SharePoint location actually forms part of a Microsoft team. So in this example here, it's the members of the team here that have access to check in, check out. I will take it away as a slight question actually, and I'll update it through David, because I think if you're not part of the tenant, you might not necessarily have that access. So if you're a multi-agency who've been given access to this team, they might not have check-in, check-out. I'm not 100% sure. So we'll take that one away and we'll get that responded to, just to be super clear about check-in, check-out.
I'm fairly confident about that, Nick, as well.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. Do the team owners have the permission to override the checkout?
That's a really good question, which I should know, and I'm not sure. I'm not going to say. I think they do, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll take that one away as well, David.
Yeah, no problem. So there's lots of documents flying around. Well, there's less documents flying around, but there's lots of versions of them. So how do you manage the versions from that point on?
That's a really good question, and lots of conversations that I've had with the forces about version control, and there seems to be lots and lots of different versions of a particular document, and you sort of look at your sharing environment within SharePoint, and suddenly you've got sort of 10, 15 copies of version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need to do that necessarily within SharePoint. There is a version control built in, and let me just show you how. So if you click on your little 3 dots here, you can click on version history. And these are all the version histories of this particular file. You can see who's amended them. You can see some file changes. You can see the file is sort of slowly growing, which is great. Now, say, for example, this one here, I want to know what the changes were, or maybe this is the one that I think, Megan made some changes last, but I need to go back to Alice's version and, on this particular date stamp. So if I just click on that file and I click on open, I'm hoping that my demo tenant's not going to play up. There you go. What you will get is you'll get the Word document pop up, and you'll see here that it's actually autosave is off. You've got a read-only mode. Do you want to restore this file? And actually, I'm going to click on restore, and that's going to restore that particular version back into that SharePoint location. We can work on it from that particular point in time. Okay, so you do have version history and the ability to restore different versions from within your SharePoint environment.
That's great.
Okay,
another couple of good questions in there if you want to pop them through.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had a question asking if it's possible to hide a document so people can't read it at all. Maybe in an example that it's a very rough draft and people aren't ready to look at anything yet. Is that an option that's available at all? Do you know?
Something as a tip that what I do, I normally create something maybe in my OneDrive. While my OneDrive is my personal files just for me, often I create something in OneDrive if I'm creating it and just feel maybe a bit apprehensive to share it with the team because maybe it's not quite ready. And then I move it into SharePoint when I'm ready. And that's something as a hint that I do. David, do you have examples of how, because you deal with a lot of documentation, a lot of communications, do you often sort of hide or place the article somewhere?
No, I actually try and discourage that across our team, to rather than hiding the documents, rather than put a comment in the review saying first draft very rough, don't take this as read.
Yeah.
And manage the version in that way, because it's the old number 10 bus theory. Even a bit of work that's been done can add value to somebody else who has to pick it up. So using the comments can be a really good thing, or just putting a note at the top of the document when you're starting it. Because the way I think it really does help is that if the document's available for the team, then the team can help support. And and I'll constantly be drafting a document and suddenly go, I'm just going to ask somebody else to have a look at this and pop them in, send them a little invite and get them in there. If it's already saved in that space, I haven't got to think about moving it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Excellent.
Yeah, we've also had another question as well, and this is a great one, asking if a file name is changed, does this affect the sharing settings at all?
That's a very good question. No, it doesn't. You can rename your file. So, for example, if I decided to rename this one here, I can find rename. Where's rename? Rename. There's rename here. Say for everyone want to put 2021. Okay, have I got numlock off? Yes, I have numlock off. There we go. Click on rename here. Okay, and then I check my manage access. You can see here that the way slightly. You can see here those links that were set up previously. I know I deleted one of them, but they're still very much here. So it's a really, really good question. You can rename the files, completely rename it, not just add something. And your links and your access that you've given are still in place to those users.
I think one of the biggest things I find, Nick, is that when you're writing a document and you suddenly want to bring somebody in, that share button in Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, that the amount of time, if you think about the effort that it would take to share a document with somebody without that function, it's quite considerable, because you'd have to find the link to the document or go to the attachments, open Outlook, draft a message. All you have to do is click that share button. It takes care of the file management for you, and you can pop your little message of the action in to the person you're bringing in. And if you think about how many times in a week you do that sort of thing, you could be saving some considerable time very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once you've moved to co-authoring and using documents in this way, you know, the other way of working, as you say, using Outlook and attaching it, and as soon as you've sent it, in effect, it's not obsolete, but it could be incorrect. You know, which version is the truth? I've sent it to 10 people, 10 people come back with amendments. You know, that's quite difficult to manage. And yet in here, like you say, I mean, what I've done here is actually opened up the document in full. So this is actually from SharePoint, opening the article in Word itself, Word Online, and you've got the share button here. So that's another way. You can see the interface here is very similar. I can type somebody's name in here. Oops. I can then have a look at some of the access rights that I want to give that person and send it off. And it appears in Outlook, but it is only a link to that file. It's still one version of the truth.
With all these people being able to manage your files and things, somebody's going to end up putting it in the recycle bin.
Absolutely, I'm sure we've all done that accidentally. So there is a recycling bin within SharePoint. It's just on the left-hand side here. So let's have a look to see what we have. So there's a couple of files already here. So what I can do is, if I click on the file, I do have the possibility here to restore it or to delete it. If I do restore it, it does get restored to the exact location where it came from. So where it got deleted from. And then what I can do is go back to my document library within SharePoint. It does take me to the root of SharePoint. Now I was in the Chief Town Hall channel here, and you should see, there you go, the customer feedback article there. The PowerPoint deck has been restored to the same location it was deleted from. The recycling bin, often I get asked, how long is it in the recycling bin for? That is a retention period set by your tenant, set by your IT department. So that might be worth checking if it's something that you feel that you may be using quite a lot.
If there's any more questions, if you want to get them in, we have got a couple more minutes left, but I see the question from Tim there about, can you disable edit in place but allow checking in and checking out?
So that's a really good question. When we talk about edit rights, what you can do with SharePoint, you can be very granular about the access rights you give people. But just a little bit of a gotcha. When we talk about SharePoint, when SharePoint is in Teams, it's in effect sort of shortcutting that SharePoint environment. So SharePoint is sitting in the background and Teams sits on top of it, and you're directing your users within Teams to that SharePoint environment. So let me just go back here. So when we talk about when we talk about SharePoint here within Teams, everybody within this team has access to be able to, create files, edit them, share them, because they're a member of this collaboration team. They're working together to get something done. Okay, so you can see the users here, there's 7 people. Okay, when you drop into SharePoint, so this little screen here, you'll see that I've got 7 members. That's actually taken from the fact that actually my Office 365, my team has been created. But you can be very granular about the access within SharePoint itself. It's not necessarily granular to Teams, but it's granular to SharePoint. So I could, if I wanted to, add a member here. It would be a member to this SharePoint location, but not a member to my team. Think of that SharePoint environment sort of standalone, behind Teams, working together, but you could, if I wanted to, invite somebody outside of my team into this SharePoint location. And if I wanted to, I can be quite granular about what access they have access to. Maybe it's edit only or read only, and you can do that within the SharePoint permissions.
Dean's come up with one of the questions that it's one of my favourite ones, around how we can make a document visible to the whole organisation, but not give them edit rights, etc. So can you share a file to the whole organisation? And this is where we can transition into SharePoint as an intranet based on SharePoint, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you've sort of create those communication hubs, it's very easy within SharePoint to be able to do something or share sort of organizational wide. So while you may create it in co-author within your team environment here within SharePoint, you can share it organizational wide and place it on an intranet, or even if you want to share it via Outlook or something, something mechanism like that, you can have the original content in SharePoint but share it organizational wide. And again, you would see that access organizational wide within your manage access screen here.
And obviously one of the other points is there you have major and minor versions in that situation as well, where you've got the major version might be visible to everybody, but then whilst the team are amending ready for the next major version, it's still one file in one place though.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where we talk about that intranet sort of version here. So yeah, exactly. You could make changes to that sort of environment within that SharePoint intranet and save it, but only publish it and make it organizational wide. Once you've in effect maybe had that approved, that content's ready to go and it's been built, so you can publish those articles within this sort of environment within SharePoint Communication Hub.
So Nick and Alice, is there anything else that if you were, this is your first 30 minutes, you've got Teams and you're thinking, okay, what can I do differently with it? What other big tip would you give somebody about working more collaboratively on this?
I think one of my biggest tips would be careful of that download option, and perhaps Nick, you can share that very briefly. Often if we're in Teams and we want to open up a document, you can open up the Word document directly in Teams. You can open up that document in the browser or to the desktop app and you're still doing that collaboration. However, as soon as you press that download button, you're effectively removing that co-authoring, and that's just something to be mindful of there that perhaps Nick can just touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you download, you actually download to your local machine. You can see here it's downloading to my download directory on my laptop. At that point, you've taken a copy. Okay, once you've taken a copy, you're sort of a standalone document. You could give people access to co-author it if you wanted to, but just be very, very careful when you download content. You're literally copying it. And other people within this environment wouldn't necessarily know that you've taken a copy and you're working on it offline. Keep your documents here. As David said, even if you want to call it, it's a draft, work in progress, WIP or something, make some comments in the document to say, this is a bit of a kickoff document, I'm working on it. If anybody's got any comments, add it to the conversation, add it to comments, rather than necessarily downloading. Downloading is great for something if you've got maybe like a stream video or something and you want to put that stream video maybe somewhere within your environment if you're in the middle of the transformation to 365. So there are occasions where you may want to download content, but if you are thinking about Word, Excel, PowerPoint, leave it in SharePoint. And just as David says, a really good hint and tip there, call it draft, call it WIP, work in progress, add some conversation, add some comments. It's a really good one.
There's one more question I'll let Alice put to you, but it could be a really good link to next week's webinar. So let's have a look.
Yeah, it's quite a long question, that one, but as a quick summary, when someone's working on a spreadsheet in Teams, they're saying that it auto saves and produces a new file in that location, resulting in a large number of those files when lots of people are accessing or amending that document at the same time. And the question is there a way to see the most recent update in the Teams tab files area?
It doesn't actually create a new file each time. It creates a new version of the same file. So I think that's the point on this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one version, it's one file that people amend in that one location. You've got some version control. It does monitor your changes. You can go back, but it's actually it's one file. So when we tabbed, for example, when I've tabbed this file here, let me just tab. I tabbed it here, didn't I? That one there. You can tab within Teams channel, which I did just now. You can also pin to the top. That's a nice little hint as well. If you've got a series of files, maybe this is quite congested. Maybe there's a lot of files within that Chiefs Town Hall event. And actually, if you want to pick out some that are actually really important to your audience, how you're collaborating with them, then actually what you can do, and I'll just show you how to do that again, select a file and you just pin to top. Think about it, just people, you're really super efficient in 365. You're just moving your mouse just across the screens. You're not having to think about opening a browser, clicking on a link that you may have saved to get into your SharePoint location. You have to find that particular SharePoint site, that particular file and folder, that actually in Teams you're just moving your mouse. you know where you want to work today, and actually these are pinned because they're important to your team at this point in time. And if you don't want them pinned anymore, you can click on the little link there and click on edit pin and unpin. It doesn't delete the file, it just unpins it from this section up here. That's also quite a nice little one.
That's fantastic. So thanks, Nick and Alex, for this one. That was really good. Next week, as I was hinting then, we're going to be looking at something called SharePoint lists. Now, lists are a real little powerhouse of how we can manage data in a slightly different way. So if you're using Excel to manage a list of vehicles, stakeholders, key individual networks, anything like that, then do start to think about what you could do in terms of using SharePoint lists. Now we're going to cover some back to basics on SharePoint lists, how to get more out of them. There are fantastic bases to adding things like Power Automate over the top and get even more effectiveness out of them. In fact, there's a lot of the functions within SharePoint and the 365 environment that actually are based on lists. If you think it through, things like tasks is effectively another version of lists. It creates a list of all your tasks with all the details on them. So there's a lot of things to learn out of that one. It's a really good session that we're planning for you next week. Please do come along. And I did drop a link into the Power Automate. We did a really fantastic little webinar on Power Automate a couple of weeks ago. From that has been real big demand to do a workshop on Power Automate where we'll create some and go through some. We set a date for mid-September for that, and you can click the link and get registered, and we'll send you the invites and get you involved in that as well. So you can see that all these things kind of join together, which is always the message I go across with 365. It's not what sets of tools in it that all work separately. These all work together, and that's the real power of it. So thanks again. Hope you can join us next week. And remember, watch the webinars, get in touch. And if you've got something you want to feature in one of these webinars, we are planning the series starting in September now. So get in touch. We'd love to hear from forces who are using this sort of technology and the impact they're having. Thanks, everybody.